Welcome to the Inspired Riding Audio Summit. We're going to be talking about the benefits of intuition in the horse world. With me today is Kara Sorensen. Kara is a licensed acupuncturist, has a master's of science in nutrition science and traditional Chinese medicine. She has a bachelor's of science in dietetics as well. She is also a certified professional co-active coach and certified metabolic coach. She's been helping women transform their cravings, overeating, and fear of weight gain since the year 2006. The results have been absolutely amazing as she loves to see her clients thrive. She lives with her husband in San Diego, California, has 2 incredible equines, and works remotely with horse owners around the world. She loves helping women feel better in their bodies. In fact, even better than in their wildest dreams. Kara, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thanks, Beth. I'm so glad you asked me. This is so much fun to talk about these things. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, what do you love most about working with horses?
Gosh, I love how they are the most amazing teachers. You know, they're in the present moment. They're very in touch with their bodies and their natural environment. And they're incredibly honest. Like, you can't get a more honest response than you can from a horse. So I feel like being with horses makes me a better person. They kind of insist on me being my better self, and when I'm not, it's like, oh, I need to work on that. So I love how they are teachers. I love how their hearts are so big and they're so compassionate towards humans. I mean, they're like best friends and teachers and everything in between. I see my horses every day, and if a day goes by when I don't see them, there's like a missing element, you know? Yeah, I just love it.
I totally understand that.
I love it.
So, what's something a horse has taught you that has changed your perspective?
So when Wisdom had a stifle injury, it was, about 3 years ago. He was a couple months into his rehab, and he had sort of a new issue, and my vet was trying to pinpoint it. And so I asked him where he needed help, and he showed me in my body, and he used the words, it is between, halfway between my hip and my knee, and it's between the gallbladder and the urinary bladder channel. He knows what I know, so he could tap into my understanding of Chinese medicine and pinpoint where he needed help. And it was the exact ligament that my vet put her hand on. She says, yep, it's right here. So because she was, she does acupuncture, so she knew the points and she knew exactly where it was. And it was he told me exactly where the issue was. So that just kind of blew me away. That blew me away, that not only do they know so much more than we think they know, and they know everything about us as humans, and they also know what we know. So if we have the knowledge, they can tap into that. That kind of blew me away.
That's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, and so helpful, because she wasn't quite sure about it, and then she felt, that's how and then we could address that issue. So
it's wonderful to have a vet like that.
Oh, so nice. Yeah. So now she's over the years, she's heard my intuitive hits about things so much that when I say it, she doesn't flinch. She just goes, oh, okay, let's do this, let's do that. And she takes it into, she still is a, medical doctor, but she takes things into account, and we use that and is part of diagnosis and treatment.
That's so beautiful and so helpful. What I'd love to know is how you receive these intuitive hits.
So sometimes it is all at once. I get an image, a feeling, a knowing, and a word. Sometimes it's one of those things, but I use pretty much all of my senses And I don't know if it's the horse that decides how it's going to resonate with me, but sometimes I'll even just tap in and just say, show me in my body what's going on in your body. And, my hands will light up and it's like, okay, so we've got a foot issue, or my stomach will, get nauseous all of a sudden. It's like, oh, there's some nausea, there's some stomach issues. It just really depends. But all I know is that whatever form it comes in, it's always helpful. Always. It's never not been helpful and spot on. So that's pretty cool.
That's really cool. I got chills on my legs from that. And I was just
Yeah.
I was just describing to Yinku how whenever I get the chills, it's like biofeedback for the truth.
Totally. Totally. And when I get chills on my legs, that's one thing. And then when I get them on my scalp, that's a whole other level of like, whoa.
Yes,
That's my that's my thing.
I
And then
usually
I'll also get like a glowing in my temple or a glowing in my heart. All those different things are just like a different message of like, yes, this is something here. Yeah.
it's so cool to feel those different confirmations. I love it.
Yeah. And so helpful because like when the doubts come in, if I can remember what it felt like in my body, then I can trust it. But if I don't, then I'm always like, ooh, did I really hear that right? But when I feel it in my body, or I know it, or I see it, like all those different things, I can trust it.
That's wonderful. And I hope more people begin to trust themselves that way too.
Yeah, because I think people get intuitive hits all the time, but they just kind of brush them off. And then over time, they're like, oh, maybe I should be listening to those because, something will happen. It will confirm what they heard or felt. And then it's like, oh, okay. But
Yep,
yeah, I want people to trust themselves more too.
absolutely. That's why we're doing this. So I'm really,
Yay.
really happy. So let's get into more of the intuition questions. How has your intuition helped you in interacting with horses or with clients?
So thinking probably the most intense situation I can think of was when Wisdom had his slab fracture. It was about a year ago. And the first advice I got was to send him to the surgeon overnight. And that's when COVID was still in play. So I wouldn't not been able to visit him or check in on him or know anything about it. He would go in and then he would hopefully come out. And I started to hear stories about horses not coming out from that surgery. And so I kind of went into a mild panic about that of like, I don't want to do it. And it wasn't about the money. It was about just being scared of what could happen. And when I talked to the surgeon, he said, if he doesn't colic, it'll be blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what do you mean if he doesn't colic? And so I started seeking out other solutions and trying to find someone who had a different perspective. And I found people who did and who were able to tune into him and check in with him and find out that no, he was not in pain. And yes, he wanted to keep his tooth. He did not want his whole tooth extracted. And I got that too when I could like get out of my fear brain and tune in. I got that too, but because it was such a big decision, I always get confirmation. So I got confirmation from several people who could be more objective. But what I realized is that he knew what he needed with his tooth, and he knew that he didn't want to have it removed. And I trusted him. I totally trusted him that he knew his body, because I think one of the worst things we can do is give our power away to someone who supposedly knows more than us about our bodies. And I've had that done with myself, and I did not want to do that with him. So I trusted him, and I found the people who were qualified enough to do what needed to be done, and they did it, and it worked, and it was fine, and he was fine. And so that was just a whole learning for me of like not listening to the people who were not looking at it from a holistic perspective and an intuitive perspective, because the dentist who told me that he was in pain and he needed to get that tooth extracted the next day was coming from her perspective, and it wasn't the perspective that felt good to me or to wisdom. And so for me to trust that in such a kind of a scary situation, because the back molar is right next to the brain in a horse, it was a huge thing for both of us. So I learned to trust myself. I learned to trust my horse, and I'm getting a little emotional because it was a really big thing for both of us. Yeah. So I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely. And I'm so very proud of you for trusting yourself and really listening to your intuition and listening to wisdom and reaching out to others that could really help in a more holistic way. So I'm proud of you, and I'm proud to know you.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, and you were supporting me through that whole thing, because it took months to even find a dentist in the first place when I suspected, because Charlie was the one who said, I think he's got a molar that's, he's got a problem molar. You remember that?
Oh, right, when you were doing the Reiki session. Right.
Yeah, we were doing a Reiki session, and it took me literally 2 months to get a dentist out, right? Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
So it's a full circle thing,
I hadn't realized that. I'm just taking that in for a moment.
Yeah.
Whoa. So, along those lines, has your intuition ever surprised you in life?
Yes. So this is another wisdom story. I have Ginger stories too, but this one, I talked about Wisdom's stifle injury. So he was in rehab, and he was grumpy, and he gets grumpy when he's not being ridden, but I didn't know that about him. I thought, oh, horses like just, lounging around and being horses, and nope, not Wisdom. So what surprised me is when I asked him one day, I just said, you're really grumpy, and I know that. How can I help you be happier? And he said, take me out and ride me. And I was like, what? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, he's just enjoying, just being a horse, not being asked to do anything. And he's injured, so obviously he doesn't want to be ridden. And no, he wanted to go out and do things, and he wanted to be ridden, because that is how he connects with his person, is through the saddle, because that's all he knows. And so it really surprised me. And we actually had to explain to him, he was getting a bodywork session a couple weeks later, and we had to actually explain to him that why I wasn't riding him, because he didn't understand, even the 2 weeks later, because my body worker is very intuitive and talks to horses. And she said, Wisdom, she's not riding you because you need to heal. And he's like, but that never stopped anyone from riding me before when I was injured. And we were both like, oh God. So that really surprised me, that, that horses will sacrifice themselves, to please their owners, and to do the things that they want to do. And so I have to be careful, because he'll do things that hurt. It's helpful to know that, and also to tune into his body, because he may not say no. He may say yes, but his body is saying no. So I have to tune into his body as well as his mind to keep him happy and healthy, because his history is he was ridden through pain.
Yeah, it's really good to have those skills to be able to tune in, trust your intuition for what's actually going on.
So. Yeah. And now we're riding again, and he's feeling good. He's feeling really good.
So awesome. I love it. So, Kara, do you have a transformation story that occurred as a direct result of trusting your intuition? I know we talked a little bit about that, but perhaps you have another one you'd like to share.
Oh my gosh. So yes. So this is where we get to talk about Ginger and how she kind of changed my perspective on life. I often say that Wisdom taught me to trust myself, which he did. And of course, you've been a part of that because you helped me trust myself on a almost daily basis in the group. I always knew that I had the group to fall on when things would come up. But when I found Ginger, she helped me trust just the process of life. So Ginger came to me in waking dreams 3 different times. And she came to me when I had been thinking about getting another mare, because Wisdom would just not tolerate another gelding. He wanted a mare. But I started, entertaining that idea, but with all the vet bills and, the things that were going on, it felt like it was way, way out of reach. And she came to me in one vision, kind of trotting across his paddock. And then maybe 4 or 6 months later, she came again, same image, trotting across the paddock. And I think that might have been in one of our group meditations the second time. And then the third time I was at a vision board workshop and conversing with Wisdom in that little guided meditation. And all of a sudden, here she comes in trotting around. She's always trotting whenever she comes in. She comes trotting around Wisdom and I. And I'm like, oh, geez, who is this horse? And I knew that from the first time, it didn't take 3 times. As soon as she came in, I'm like, okay, that's my next horse. She is about 14.2, 14.3. She's definitely been a mother. And I don't know how I'm going to find her, but I guess I'm just going to trust the process. And so fast forward to a year ago, February 26th, which is also her birthday, at that vision board, I was like, okay, universe, show me how to find this horse. I didn't have the money for her. I didn't even know if I had a place for her, at my current boarding place. But my trainer and I were just talking one day as she was out visiting, and I said, did I tell you about the Palomino mare that has come to me in visions 3 different times? And she says, no. And I told her about it. She says, I know a Palomino mare. And she had some friends who had a Palomino mare for sale. And so I tuned into her and I said, are you the mare that keeps coming to my visions? She said, yes. And I said, because I already knew about her price. I didn't know the exact price. It was actually more than what my trainer had thought. But I said, why do you have to be so expensive? And she said, I'm worth it. And we're going to have so much fun.
That's fantastic. I love her.
And the rest is history. It's like I went up to visit her and it was just like, yeah, I mean, there were some little hiccups with her pre-purchase exam. She had some event lines in her hooves and she had a crusty neck, and those are both signs of metabolic issues. And so, we did the vet check, and then I checked in with Jana about her because, I already have a horse who has metabolic issues, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, seriously. And she was very clear that she was healthy and that she didn't have metabolic issues. And wouldn't you know it, that we trusted that, and she lost the weight. She no longer has a crusty neck, and the event lines in her feet were just because her feet were left long, and so it was leverage. It was from her feet not being trimmed while she was out in pasture. And so her feet are perfect now. There's no event lines. And so she guided us as well about, hey, I'm your horse. I'm healthy. Take me home. And so after the vet check, when we found out that she had some navicular changes, because that's another thing, Wisdom had navicular changes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here I'm getting another metabolic horse with navicular changes. And it's like, seriously, universe. But, she said that it didn't bother her. I'd already rehabbed Wisdom with his navicular issues. And so that I was able to get over that hurdle. But at one point I was, we were staying at this ranch and I was in bed just feeling like, oh my gosh, so conflicted about the whole thing. And so I just tuned into her and I just said, Ginger, what do I do? Like I'm, because I was just flustered, but I was able to connect with my heart, and thus I was able to connect with her. And she said, "Bring me home. I'll heal your heart." And I was like, "Oh God, okay."
Oh my gosh, chills on my face now.
And I did. And I've had her almost a year, and it's just, she's blossoming and she's healing. And because she had a past of, breeding trauma and that kind of thing. And I've been able to help her with that. And she's just coming into her own, and she's just such a love. And she is healing my heart like on a daily basis, because this horse is, oh, I call her my pony to not confuse with Wisdom because he gets jealous, but she's like love on four legs. I've never known a creature with so much love. So she was right. So that's what I learned, that I can trust my pony, I can trust life. And I paid for her cash. I raised the money, and I didn't raise the money. The money showed up. I had the intention and the money showed up with the help of that book that you recommended. So it was kind of a kind of a miracle from beginning to end, and it's still going. So
It was meant to be, and it shows how powerful you are.
yes, yes. And how she found me, it blows my mind. Like, I don't know how those things work, but this pony found me and decided that she wanted to come out of a 400-acre pasture to hang out with me. Yeah, it just blows my mind.
It's fantastic. I love it so much. So, Kara, what lights you up and inspires you immensely in the horse world?
I love this question. People who are actively looking for a different way to be with horses, whether that's in their care and, relating to them and what they do with them, just being innovative and not going along with how it's always been done. I get that all the time of like, oh, this is how it's always been done. And, if you don't have decades of horse experience, then you don't know what you're doing. And it's like, no, I want to hang out with people who are connecting with their horses in a way that's fun and friendly and takes the horse into consideration. And that really inspires me. I have a new friend that she just moved barns, but she did really well in the jumper world because her horse and her had such communication that she would think what she wanted to do and she would shave time off, whatever, like it was the perfect duo. Yeah. So she could compete. And I wish everyone knew this, that you can compete at high levels and have that relationship with your horse. It doesn't mean, having a relationship with your horse doesn't mean you just sit in their paddock with them and hang out with them. And you can compete at top levels and do it better. She used to have people offer her money for that horse after every competition because she was so connected with the horse that they excelled. And all it was their relationship and their communication. So that's what's inspiring to me, is people who are taking things to the next level and not just going along with the force and domination that has been in our history with humans and horses.
I love that. And that's exactly what I teach in the Believe in Your Magic program, is you can make those telepathic connections to enhance your training and your, if you want to compete, you're competing, or just your pleasure riding, or whatever it is you want to do in the horse world. It is an amazing thing to be able to find that connection, and it's like nothing else. So I'm so glad that you met someone that does that. That's so cool.
Oh my gosh. And if I had the skill, the writing skills, I've never, like when I was a kid, I wanted to compete, and I never did, but I always wanted to. But now I don't have that desire to compete, but if I had the skills, I would do it just to show off that it can be done,
I hear you. That's so fun.
with the bitless bridle and, and no need for, excessive aids, and just have people go, what is she doing? I think there are plenty of people who can do that. So I don't have to do it, but I think that would be just so much fun to just have people just have their jaws drop of like, what's going on there?
Well, honestly, Kara, what I was thinking about yesterday is the concept of doing these tiny moments with our horses and letting that become like a beacon of light in the horse world where people will see these
Mm,
little tiny moments of connection and really honor that just as much as a beautiful, clean jump course. You know what I mean?
yes, yes. Because like those are the moments that our lives we're just shining in that moment in time. And gosh, the horses love it.
Yeah.
Like they don't need the ribbons. They need the connection and I just love it that wisdom, he wants to ride. He wants to ride. And that's what I want. I want horses to want to be ridden, not, oh, I can't catch my horse or my horse doesn't want to go forward. It's like, oh, I want horses to be so honored that they feel like they can give their bodies to someone and and have fun, and enjoy themselves. That's what I want. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it's just like having the horse invite you to dance with them and they get to show you what it's like to move like them. Even
Yes.
yesterday, Pepper brought me into the woods when I was just using the bridleless guide. So that's just the little rope around the neck and
Yes.
no bridle, and we're going into the woods. And I'm like, well, here goes nothing. This is my first time doing this outside the arena. Of course, our arena doesn't even have fencing, so it's
Right.
pretty wild anyway. But so we go into the woods and he takes me towards a bush and I was able to back him up and turn him. And then he takes me along this beautiful little path and then he brings me back to the arena and says, see, we can do this. It's fun. And it was just the coolest little moment. Like, so these little
Yeah.
moments really add up and it just makes my heart so happy to know that he enjoyed it as well and that we could trust each other for that. You know?
Yes. Yeah. I want the horse to enjoy it as much as I do. And yeah, the mutual trust there's just nothing like it when you trust your horse trusts you. There's just such a wonderful flow and it's just so much fun. That's what I want people to know is that it can be that much fun.
Totally. I love it. Kara, what's one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self for encouragement?
I think I would give the advice of trust yourself and surround yourself with people who believe in you. I think when we get back into horses later in life, especially, but not even then, sometimes just in general, the experts can be so loud and sometimes their advice is good and sometimes it's not so helpful. And so being able to trust ourselves and know when it's the right thing to do and when it's not is so important. And I know you know about that, and I know about that from falling on breaking my tailbone when I was encouraged to get back on a horse I had no business being on. So yeah, trusting myself, trusting the horse, and don't give up when things get tough, because I think the horses almost force us to grow, and sometimes we get into stuck places and it's just a time to find a different path through, and it can be frustrating. I've had many of those experiences, but I can look back and see, oh yeah, I just needed to pivot, I just needed to adjust things, I just needed to change something within myself. The horses are never like doing those things on purpose. They're just holding the integrity of the moment, and they won't compromise. Yeah. So it's like trusting the process, trusting myself, trusting the horse. And if someone says something that doesn't feel good, not not taking it to heart.
This is wonderful advice. Yes.
Yeah, and finding someone who has different perspectives, because every time you ask a question, there's 15 different responses about what to do in the horse world. It's the same thing, with health. So it's not nothing. I'm used to it. It's just a new area for me, new again area for me. So I don't know as much. But sometimes I think not knowing is a gift, because then you can tune in and really know.
Yeah. I love it.
You can have the wrong knowledge for 50 years, but if you can tune in, you can get the truth on the spot. and let go of all that stuff that you thought was true in a heartbeat, and trusting that the fear can dissipate and you can have fun.
Yes, yes, please, more of that.
Definitely.
So, speaking of fun, what does the phrase, may the horse be with you always, mean to you?
That means to me, having horses in my life, no matter what, because I spent too many years without them while I was getting too many degrees and all the things. So letting them be in my life. And also when I'm not with them, because I do have to make a living, do have to sleep, letting them be a part of my life even when I'm not with them. So keeping their way of being, their way of life in mind, being in the present moment, being kind, being loving, being a good herd mate, all those things. I mean, I know horses can get after each other and all that kind of thing, but they take care of each other in the herd. So I think it's just a matter of being more like a horse.
Beautiful. And they're also very clear about what they need, right?
Yeah.
Well, I love all of these insights. Is there anything else that you wanted to share, Kara?
The other thing I wanted to share is don't hesitate to ask your horse what they want to be called. So even before I got wisdom, I was meditating one day and I asked him what his name was, because his name was not a name I was going to continue on with for him. It did not suit him at all. And I saw a bubbling soup, like an alphabet soup. And all of a sudden the little letters popped up and it said wisdom. And I was like, oh my God, I can't call you that. That, for one thing, it's a big name, but then one of my mentors has a mythical horse on a card deck named Wisdom. And I'm just like, I can't do that. And so I talked to an animal communicator. The first time I ever talked to someone, she asked his name. And I said, well, that's why I'm calling you. And I told her this situation. And she says, well, he says that that's just who he is. That's his name. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. And he's been wisdom ever since. I had to step into that and give him his name. And then with Ginger, I asked her name and she told me, and I was like, huh, okay. And I wasn't quite sure about it. I asked, again, I asked for confirmation. Yes, that's the name. And then I was sitting one day and just got the intuitive hit that she wanted a new name because she was no longer a ranch horse. She was moving into being a healing horse, and my horse. And also Ginger, the root is in Chinese medicine is very healing to the stomach. And it is the herb that gets added to Chinese herbal formulas for healing the earth element, digestion. And she is an earth horse. She is like an earth mama, right? So that is her healing gift. And I was like, yeah, this makes sense. And when I think about her, she moves gingerly in the world. She's gentle. That's what it is. And so her name fits too. So my advice is to ask your horse their name, because you might be surprised at how well suited their names are to their personality. Like, I can't imagine them being called anything different now that I know them. So that was fun.
That's so cool. Yes, I hope more people do that. That's really awesome. Well, Kara, thank you again so much. I so appreciate everything you do in the horse world, and I hope people take all of this to heart. And please do check out what Kara has to offer. I've gone through her program, and my body has changed significantly, and I am so grateful. I can't even put it into words. So thank you again.
Well, thank you. Thank you for everything you do. You inspire me every day.
You're welcome. Well, we'll close this out with, may the horse be with you always.